In Abe's mind, Kane, he was the lone wolf. He was a natural-born killer, disconnected from society. He did his job without asking questions, 100% reliable. No conscience, no moral sense, no guilt. He just did what he had to do. He was the perfect soldier.
I told that damn bastard if he doesn't pay me by Saturday, I'm gonna stab him. Hey, screw him. You've got to do what you've just got to do.
What the hell are you staring at? Abe would say, in this world, if I can't negotiate it and Richie can't buy it, there's only one way to settle it. You gotta be a monster. A real straight-up damn monster.
The movie begins with two criminals playing a game of chess, both leaders of organizations that still abide by the old rules of crime: respect, honor, and loyalty. One of them is Abe, a feared leader but also a broken man, suffering from dissociative identity disorder that splits him into three versions of himself. The most dangerous one calls himself Kane. His rival is Frankie, a sociopath who was once his partner and friend, until he decided to go independent and build his own empire. Since then, their dispute has been called a gang war by the media, but for them, it's something far more personal, something that can only end in blood. Now we meet Benny, Abe's personal driver and most trusted man. To him, his boss is not just a leader, but also a father figure, a mentor, and despite his flaws, someone he deeply respects. The story places us in the present. Benny has been arrested, though the reasons are not revealed at first. During the interrogation, the agents mention an incident that took place in a bar just 24 hours earlier, and from that moment, the film takes us to the past to reconstruct what happened. We see Abe waking up at home, accompanied by his daughter, playing with her for a few minutes before his wife appears. They share a calm conversation about everyday life, then have breakfast together as a family, and before leaving, Abe makes a cup of coffee for his driver, who waits punctually outside the door as he does every morning. Back in the present, the investigators ask Benny if he ever saw his boss involved in anything illegal. He calmly replies that Abe was a reserved man who never shared sensitive information with anyone. His job was simply to drive him and be available when needed. The story then returns to the day of the incident. Benny receives the coffee from Abe's hands and, as a gesture of gratitude, offers him a cigarette. During their brief chat, Abe casually mentions the name of one of his former personalities, one that, according to Benny, had disappeared years ago. At that moment, the driver realizes that his boss has stopped taking the medication that kept him stable. It makes him nervous, but he decides to say nothing and continues the day as if everything were under control. Once they get in the car, both notice that they're being followed by an undercover agent. It's not the first time. They've been dealing with constant surveillance for months. Abe grabs his phone and tells Benny he's calling his associates, but Benny reveals that in truth, he uses the phone to talk to his other personalities, his way of communicating with himself, a strange but familiar method of coping with his illness. When traffic builds up, Benny steps on the gas and manages to lose the agents within seconds. His boss, calm, tells him that tonight will be crucial. He says that in the world of crime, one must adapt to survive, that everything is like a chess match. With a firm gaze, he adds that tonight, Frankie will know who the real leader is. Again in the present, Benny tells the agents that they stopped at an apartment he claims he had never been to before. However, that's a lie. He had taken his boss there several times and knew perfectly well what kind of meetings took place there. It's at this point that we meet Kane, Abe's most dangerous personality. A born killer, the part of himself he could always rely on for anything. Kane was created with a clear purpose, to fight the war that the other part of Abe couldn't face. We are also introduced to Richard, the personality in charge of the finances, the man who laundered the money and kept the accounts in order. But over time, Richard began to rebel against his creator, ignoring Abe's calls as if he had built his own life within that fragmented mind. To Abe, all his personalities were real. He saw the world as a hostile place, full of threats, and in his mind, Kane was the answer to that violent environment. He saw him as a lone wolf, an executioner without conscience or remorse, capable of doing what he himself couldn't. In his mind, Kane was the perfect soldier, though in reality, he had no idea how dangerous he could become. In the next scene, we see Kane entering a store. As he grabs a drink, two gang members appear looking for trouble. They approach and stare him down, and in a sudden move, the killer attacks them with brutal violence, beating them until their skulls are shattered. But suddenly, the scene changes. It was all an illusion inside his mind. Abe lived through Kane, experiencing his violence as a fantasy. He used that personality for business, not for senseless rage. But that line between control and chaos was starting to blur. Kane had his own inner demons. Abe had a real apartment, a discreet place he used for personal matters. Several trusted people worked in the area, but in his mind, one of the rooms belonged to Kane, his deadliest hitman. In that room, orders for assassinations were left, missions that were always carried out with precision and without leaving a trace. Stan was the one responsible for delivering those orders. He followed a strict protocol: arrive, knock twice, leave the letter in the room, and leave without saying a word. He never questioned the orders, never looked inside. Over time, Kane's true nature was revealed. He wasn't just the violent part of Abe, he was also the executioner of his own creations. Under direct orders from his creator, Kane had eliminated former personalities, identities that had defied or betrayed him. Some had stolen money, others tried to become independent, but all met the same fate: erased from existence. Those erased fragments didn't vanish completely. They followed Kane like shadows, like demons haunting him, whispering from the darkness. That night, a new order arrived in the room. Richard had to die. He was one of the most dominant personalities, the one who managed the finances and money laundering, but also the one who had rebelled the most. Later, we see the accountant stepping out of the shower and greeting his pregnant wife affectionately. However, minutes earlier, while he was showering, she had checked his phone and discovered messages from another woman. Richard was planning to meet his lover. Meanwhile, we see Kane preparing to carry out his new assignment. He adjusts his leather jacket, starts his motorcycle, and speeds away into the cold lights of the city, unaware that his target is being closely watched by his wife, who has just discovered his betrayal. Before meeting his lover, the accountant decides to call her. He tells her that he misses her and that what he wants most is to see her, but first he has to take care of some things, promising to be back in about 40 minutes. Desperate and confused, Pam calls her best friend to tell her what happened. Through sobs, she says she just discovered that her husband is cheating on her with a woman he has saved in his phone under the name Candy. What Pam doesn't know is that Cully, her friend, is that very woman. Hearing the name, Cully pretends to be surprised, trying to calm her by saying maybe she's mistaken. As soon as she hangs up, she quickly dials her lover's number and warns him that his wife is following him. Despite the warning, the accountant remains calm. He drives to an empty parking lot, thinking he can lose her there. Kane is already waiting for him, having him in his sights. The assassin aims and fires, but Richard, in a burst of reflexes, manages to push the gun aside. The shot misses, echoing through the place. Kane responds with two quick and precise blows that knock him unconscious, and without showing any emotion, he shoots him point blank, fulfilling his order without hesitation. As he turns to the right, he is shocked to see that the stray bullet hit Richard's wife in the head. Back in the present, Benny tells the agents that that night his boss took him to a tavern he often visited. To his surprise, Abe asked him to come inside instead of waiting in the car as usual. He agreed out of instinct and loyalty, thinking it might be wise to stay close, since that night his boss was going to meet with Frankie. They had a drink and sat at a distant table, watching the movement of the place. A few minutes later, Frankie arrived with his associate Tony, short greetings, calculated looks, and a forced courtesy that couldn't hide the hostility. At first, their conversation sounded like that of two old acquaintances negotiating, but the tension was palpable in every word, in the brushing of hands over the glass, and in the way the men around them watched every move. Abe then proposed a game of chess with life at stake. The one who won would live, the one who lost would die. The idea felt like a sentence over the table. Frankie refused at first, incredulous and arrogant, confident in his safety net and the army of men protecting him. When his refusal wasn't enough, Abe's men forced him to sit and play. The humiliation became part of the punishment. In the present, Benny explains to the agents the strange conditions of that game, describing the silence that filled the room and how no one dared to interrupt. Hearing his story, the officers are stunned. They've never heard anything like it in a crime scene. Frankie, trying to regain control, took out his phone and made a call on speaker to show that his family was being watched and that if anything happened to him, his men already had orders. His gesture was meant to secure an escape route, a warning, a threat that served as a safety card. However, Abe told him to make the call. Out of pride or defiance, Frankie did. He called his men and gave them the green light to take out the family. The men went to the address he had given them, but what they found wasn't what they expected: an empty house. No furniture, no photos, only a shoebox in the middle of the floor. Tension grew as one of them approached to open it. The room exploded in a trap that had been set up, and surprise turned to fear. Abe's tone changed, his voice became cold and sharp. He accused Frankie directly of threatening his family, of playing with lives that didn't belong to him. Frankie, visibly nervous, tried to downplay it, saying he was only joking, that he would never hurt his family. Abe ordered him to shut up and firmly stated that despite the bad move, their deal still stood because he was a man of his word. The gangster, shaken but trying to keep up appearances, asked for a drink to calm himself. He drank, and the game truly began. Each move on the board was deliberate. There were looks that read intentions, hands that concealed nerves. Frankie gained an advantage by taking a knight, an aggressive maneuver that cost him a piece as well. Each move brought them closer to life or death. They took their time with each move, using every second to read reactions and plant out. Abe's calculated calm contrasted with Frankie's anxiety, both seemingly balancing each other out with every play. Everything changed when Abe began hearing voices, whispers from his other personalities emerging in his mind. His inner demons distracted him, breaking his concentration. His moves slowed, and the advantage shifted. Seizing the opportunity, Frankie won the challenge. He celebrated with a triumphant smile that didn't last long. In a violent and unpredictable reaction, Abe drew his gun and blew Tony's head off without saying a word. In seconds, Abe began shooting his own men. Benny recalls that in that moment, his boss vanished before his eyes. It was no longer Abe sitting at the table. Kane had taken over, the lethal and remorseless personality. The transformation was terrifying in its naturalness, a cold, efficient presence that showed no hesitation in its brutality. The gangster, now defeated and trembling, begged him to kill him once and for all. Kane looked at him calmly and, with one swift move, blew his head off. He then turned to Benny. In a cold and nearly emotionless voice, he told him he hadn't shot him because he knew he wasn't a monster like them. Then he ordered him to pick up the gun from the floor. Benny froze, unable to move. Kane shoved him, forcing him to grab it, and with the same ruthless composure, asked him to shoot. The request pushed Benny to the edge of a moral abyss. He didn't want to do it, but the pressure and Kane's command drove him to an act that sealed his fate. In the following scenes, we see what really happened in the parking lot. Abe, completely out of his mind, holds the gun tightly and points forward. In his mind, the accountant lies unconscious on the floor, but in reality, there is no one there. He pulls the trigger again and again, shooting into nothing, convinced that he's completing his mission. In that moment, Kane has taken full control. To him, the murder is real, and when he thinks he sees Richard's lover witnessing the scene, he decides to eliminate her to leave no trace. Meanwhile, Benny tells us that his boss, deep down, always knew what he was doing. Everything that happened was his own doing, a sick construction within his mind. The people around him lived trapped in his delusion, part of his nightmare without even realizing it. In the end, Benny reflects that maybe Abe was right about one thing, that all of us, in one way or another, carry a monster within us, one that could reveal itself at any moment.